Okay, so we're going to be talking about cultural intelligence and what it is and why we need it and how it can help us build better careers and better lives in globalized society. So a very short introduction why I am interested in this topic and what my experience is. So first of all, I've been a member of cross-cultural teams. I worked in many cross-cultural teams for many years, for about, I don't know, over 10 years now, for about 15 years. My main background is television and film production, and this is what or audio-visual communication. This is what I specialize in. And, so I worked in different writers teams, production teams, also different educational projects. I run programs with international faculty and international students. I teach to many international groups. So I've been a member of international teams for a long time. Then gradually I started managing those teams, right? So from being just a member, I transitioned to being a manager of those teams. So kind of assembling those teams, strategizing what members is best to have, foreseeing the troubles that intercultural teams may face in the process of their work, and actually really just mainly answering to the question, why do we need an intercultural team? Because I hope you will share your experience in intercultural settings that you've had, but you probably already know that it's a little bit more difficult maybe to run cross-cultural teams than homogeneous teams or ethnically or culturally homogeneous teams. So always as a manager, you have to ask yourself, so what's the asset? What's the benefit? Why am I going into this trouble of kind of running an intercultural team as opposed to running a culturally unified or homogeneous team? And finally, Ethnic Kitchen, the business that I run now, it's called the Ethnic Kitchen Consulting, is a consulting agency where we consult companies, universities, NGOs on cross-cultural communication and management. And it can be different kinds of services and products that we provide. We can say, somebody can approach us and say, can you help us launch this particular product in a particular foreign market, or it can be just as simple as saying, well, we want to establish a connection with this international partner. Can you just help us word the letter or word the emails or word or kind of design a line of communication in a way that that partner will understand us better. So, and anything in between, right? So this is what I do, and this is where I come from. So all my kind of experience that I'm going to be sharing with you today is very practical. It's very hands-on. It's really just to help you kind of think about yourselves in terms of globalized market and thinking about yourselves as working not just in your home market, but maybe working somewhere outside of your home market, or maybe not necessarily going abroad, but maybe going to working for an international team or something. The Economist is one of the probably most prestigious business magazines in the world, and they have this intelligence unit. So every year, this intelligence unit, a group of journalists of The Economist, go to the biggest companies, and they interview their senior executives, and they ask them, so in 10 years, what do you think is going to be the biggest problem for your company? And then they kind of issue a report on that. So this slide that you can see now on the screen is from 2006 and 2007. And 1,000 senior executives across 40 nations were interviewed for this report. And they said that the greatest challenge facing global organizations is going to be a lack of high quality talent that can operate in multiple cultures. And here we are 10 years later, almost 10 years later, right? More than 10 years later, facing this challenge. Because what happened? Of course, COVID and the pandemics really changed the situation, and we'll see what happens next. But all the technology is there. Even this proof that I'm sitting here talking to you from my office in the north of Europe, to you in Lille, shows that the technology is there, right? We can talk, we can do work, we can do assignments. I could run a module, I could teach a module to you, right? The flight is quite cheap. When we're allowed to fly, we'll be able to hop on a plane, and I could be in Lille, I don't know, in 3 hours, right? A plane and a train ride including, right? So there's no objective obstacle to expand for businesses. And ultimately businesses, they want to expand, right? So that's a goal of most of the businesses, right? To make more money, to have a bigger market share. And and the objective reasons are there. We can kind of, do that. But the problem is the subjective, obstacles. Can we as individuals really run those international teams? And can we be comfortable in those international settings? And can we just pack our bag and go to New Delhi in India and start our operations like working as a manager like that? Or like Emily, can we just take our suitcase, take our pink coat, go to a French company and say, I'm going to fix your social media presence, people in France, right? Because you know nothing about it. I have the knowledge from America, right? Can we? So that's the question, right? And I think Emily runs into those challenges. They might be a little bit grotesque because it's a comedy, but these are real challenges, and we're going to be talking about that later. So cultural intelligence is our CQ, and CQ shows how well we can adapt and work and communicate in cross-cultural situations, right? But that's not the only Q you probably know. You probably all know IQ, which is intelligence quotient, or the marks your intelligence, or cognitive, your cognitive intelligence, and then you probably heard of EQ, your emotional intelligence or emotional quotient, right? So these are, of course, there are more, but I'm going to focus on those 3 today, and I'm going to a little bit focus on the difference. So if we talk about IQ, it's cognitive intelligence, and it basically says I know a lot. It's about your logical thinking. It's about your reasoning. It's about your deduction skills, right? Then we talk about EQ, or emotional intelligence, and that basically means I'm good with people, right? Because we know a lot of smart people who know a lot, but they are not necessarily successful people, right? Because to succeed, you also need to understand other people, to be empathetic, to see where those people come from, right? So emotional intelligence is saying I'm good with people, but in the parenthesis, like me. People like me. And that's the difference between emotional intelligence and cultural intelligence. Cultural intelligence says I'm good with people different from me, right? And these are 2 different things. So if we're talking about globalization and about international careers and about global leadership, it's very important that we're not only good with people who are like me, like French people from the same culture, but also people who are different from me. And the fact that you're good with people who are like you doesn't mean automatically you'll be good with people who are different from you. I've worked with many great businessmen who built very successful business in their home countries, but whenever they go abroad and they need to do, to make a deal abroad, they fail. Because they're used to behaving in one certain way in their own culture. And they're not even aware very often that you have to do things slightly different in different cultures, right? So these are not really kind of automatically linked. The fact that you're good and you're charming and you're popular in your own culture doesn't automatically mean that that's going to happen in other cultures. And we have to have it in mind. Okay. So there's a great talk again on internet by Julia Middleton called Cultural Intelligence, the Competitive Edge for Leaders. I encourage you to watch it on your own time. But she makes those really good distinctions between those 3 Qs, right? So first of all, she says okay, so IQ is still the reason why we get hired. Because we get hired because we know something, right? If you're looking for a manager, you're going to hire a good manager. If you're looking for a programmer, you're going to hire somebody who is good at coding. And if you're going to hire a designer, you're going to look for somebody who's good at design, right? Then when we start working with those people, we understand that they're not very nice people always. And this is where you can get fired, right? So your lack of emotional intelligence, you are maybe being rude, insensitive, uncommunicative, uncooperative, not being able to work in a team, so on and so forth, might be a reason why you get fired. So usually EQ, your EQ is the reason why you get fired, right? And even myself, after running the teams for international teams for many years, I can say that very often I fire people because they know nothing or they're bad at their job per se. Because you kind of sort that out when you hire people. You make sure that they know something. But 95% of my sacks or layoffs were because people were just rude, not nice, and just impossible to deal with on the most basic human level. So that's very important. And then, but now increasingly, because of the reasons that I discussed at the beginning of the session, of the expansion of businesses and globalization of businesses, your CQ is becoming more and more the reason for you being promoted. So when then your boss is looking at you and thinking, okay, so, this is a nice person. They are nice with other people. They're a good team player. They are learning fast and they know a lot about their work and they're, keep getting better at it. But do they deserve a promotion? So very often your CQ will be taken into account. They will think, okay, so if I put this person in charge of an international team or a product or an international launch of a product, or if I send this person to, as I said, New Delhi to run my, office there, regional office there, will that person succeed? And that's a very important question that more and more CEOs and more employers are asking about their employees. So let us do a quick test of our CQ. Okay, so it's going to be, not more than 5 minutes. It's self-assessment, so try to be as open as you can with yourselves, but you will not have to share it if you do not want to share it, okay? So there are 4 statements in the slide, and you have to rank to grade yourself from 1 to 5, where 1 is strongly disagree and 5 is strongly agree. So the first statement is, before I interact with people from a new culture, I ask myself what I hope to achieve, right? From 1 to 5. Just rate yourself, right? Grade yourself, give yourself a grade. If I encounter something unexpected while working in a new culture, I use this experience to figure out new ways to approach other cultures in the future. So I learn from my mistakes and apply those learnings in the future. From 1 to 5, grade yourself. I plan how I'm going to relate to people from a different culture before I meet them. So if I know that I'm going to teaching to a French group of students, I plan accordingly, right? When I come into a new cultural situation, I can immediately sense whether something is going well or something is wrong, right? Grade yourself, put all those grades together, divide them by 4, and that's your cognitive CQ. I'm going to talk about what that means later. Just have that number for now. So your cognitive CQ, you have that. Okay, let's move on. 4 more statements. It's easy to change my body language, for example, eye contact or posture, to suit people from a different culture, right? If you're Emily and you can see that your French colleagues see that your blah, blah, blah is too much, you kind of start behaving kind of like in a more modest way. From 1 to 5. I can alter my expression when a cultural encounter requires it. Right? So if, for example, somebody gives me a dish that they're very proud of and it's their national dish, but I think it's just disgusting, can I control my facial expression? Can I hide it? I modify my speech style, for example, accent or tone, to suit people from a different culture. If I see that people do not understand my accent. I easily change the way I act when a cross-cultural encounter seems to require it. So it's not easy for me to change the way I greet people or keep an eye contact, keep the distance between the bodies and so on. Okay, so you have your grades, divide them by 4, and that's your behavioral CQ. We're going to talk about that later, but that's the second number you have to have, right? So you have 1 number, now it's the second number. Let's move on. And that's one more slide, the last one. I have confidence that I can deal well with people from a different culture. I'm confident. I'm certain that I can befriend people whose cultural backgrounds are different from mine. Yeah. So if I meet the Spanish students with whom I have to do an assignment, I know that it's going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to make friends easily. I can adapt to the lifestyle of a different culture with a relative ease. So it's more for those who have, like Bogna, who had to adapt to a different culture because of her work. And the last but not least, I am confident that I can deal with a cultural situation that's unfamiliar. So I have necessary tools to navigate my not knowing, right? Again, from 1 to 5, add all those 4 numbers, divide them by 4, and that's your motivational CQ. So by now, you have to have 3 numbers, right? And let's see what they mean. So an average of less than 3 would indicate that this is an area that calls for improvement, and an average greater than 4.5 means your true strength. So what's important here, I think, in this test, that there are those 3 areas, and that CQ, our cultural intelligence, is a complex thing, and that the fact that we're good in one area doesn't mean that we do not have to improve in another area, right? So we cannot just keep working on one area. We have to keep working on all those areas of our CQ. And I'm going to explain what those areas mean in a bit. So these are those 4 areas. I mean, in some literature, you will find maybe 3. So cognitive and metacognitive is 1. So when you have cognitive CQ, so it's I kind of separated them, but it's 1. So it's cognitive, then motivational, and behavioral. Okay. So let's talk about what that means for you, right? So first of all, your cognitive CQ is your knowledge. And this is usually what people think that they have to work on their CQ. Oh, I have to read. I'm going to France. I'm going to read about the French people, or I'm going to India. I'm going to read about Indian, the religions and languages in India, right? I have to educate myself. I have to read about the history now, of Lithuania or Poland or whatever, right? So that's your knowledge. I'm going to go to another country. I'm going to buy a book and read about that country. That's only one step in your journey. Another step, because you have to understand that every culture is heterogeneous. So you are French people, you have different relationships to your own culture, right? So, and you never know whom you're going to encounter. You might encounter a person who is a cliche, right? And you're like, oh yeah, I know, I read everything about that person. Or you may encounter a person who behaves totally opposite to what you read in the book. And you will never know until you meet that person or these people. So it's very important that you learn to observe, reflect, and adjust accordingly, right? You have to know, to understand how you learn, to be able to learn quickly, okay? So that's a very important part. Then motivation. And that's you're bound to make a fool out of yourself in every intercultural situation. There's no escaping that, okay? So there's no escape. So we have to establish that and to kind of accept that. The question is, what do you do after that? Because if you think that you're going to get everything right from the first instance or first experience, and if you get it wrong, then you're just like, okay, I'm not going to do that. So I tried to speak to a French person, he or she corrected my language, or they thought I was Russian or whatever. I'm not going to talk to any French people anymore. All French people are bad people, right? This will never lead you anywhere, right? Okay, so I made a fool once. Maybe I was not lucky. I met the wrong French person. Let's try again. Let's see what I can do differently. Let's see what I can learn, right? So tenacity is very important in your cultural, and that's your motivation. So whenever you go to another culture and you want to make friends and you want to integrate, ask yourself, how much of an effort, energy, and time I am prepared to put into this. Because if you just go to another culture or go into an intercultural team and expect everything to fall just into places automatically, then you're kidding yourself. Don't even start, right? You have to be tenacious. You have to kind of learn from every situation and adapt what you learned from that situation to the next situation. That doesn't mean you're going to get it right from the second time. It doesn't even get you're going to get it right from the 20th time, right? But you have to be prepared for those failings, and you have to be prepared for this concept, and you have to seek out actively those situations that could make you better. So I always ask people, so I was giving this talk in India to students at an Indian university recently, and they said, so what do we do if we haven't traveled anywhere? We don't have any international classmates. How do we seek out those situations, you know? My advice is was simple. Well, look for somebody who's different from you. Maybe you have a neighbor who is from a different region in France. Maybe you have a professor like Bogna who is not from the same country. Maybe there's one Spanish student who needs somebody to work on a project on. Be that student. Go and say, I'm going to help you, you know, because that's your opportunity to learn. Maybe you have, I don't know, a granny who's, who's from another region and who's very conservative, right? Just instead of just ignoring her and staying in your phone and saying, okay, the granny doesn't know anyone, anything, I'm not going to talk to her. Talk to her. Try to understand her. Go on a walk with her. Go to an event that she wants to go to. Right? Try to understand why she thinks the way she thinks. Try to seek those situations actively, because that's the only thing that will make you feel, that will help you get better. And finally, behavioral CQ is okay. So not just knowing is not enough. Ultimately, what we want to do is we want to be able to act properly and efficiently in intercultural situations, right? So all of this process that I've just described so far has to lead us ultimately to selecting and being able to take appropriate verbal and non-verbal actions. And you have really to understand that it's not that your body language is also sending signals to people around you, right? So if you say, if you take that dish that I just mentioned that you think is disgusting, right? And you say, oh, thank you very much. It's very, very, very tasty. But your body language is like, like that, then people will understand automatically that you're lying. And that is called in cross-cultural communication non-verbal leakage, like gas leakage, when your gas pipe is broken and there's leakage. So your body can produce non-verbal leakage, right? Again, you have to train yourself to kind of minimize it, right? You have to be aware that or for example, another non-verbal communication is the distance between people. Certain people like us in the North, we don't like people coming close to us. And what do French people do when they want to greet you? They want to kiss you on both cheeks. And you're like, oh, I'm being assaulted. Oh my gosh, what's happening. So it's, especially if it's a different gender or whatever, right? So you have to, again, it's your body language, it's your nonverbal action. If you're with a person from a different culture, maybe it's good to observe or to ask or to say or to warn, oh, I'm going to do the French thing now. I'm going to kiss you. Is that okay on the cheek? And you'll see how the person reacts, or standing close or far away from people, so certain cultures, they like to stand close to you, right? And the person keeps moving and then this other person keeps following, and they're gonna end up circling the room, right? If you see that the person is stepping away, just stop. Do not keep harassing that person, So you have to be so this is what I mean by nonverbal actions, right? So it's not just what you say, but also what you do that really matters. And these are those 4 or 3 areas of your behavior, your knowledge, and your thinking that you have to work on constantly. So if you had one area stronger and the other area weaker, that's normal. That's what happens to all of us. You have to be aware of that, and you have to know what your strength is and what your weakness is. Once you know what your weakness is, you can work on that. I'm just going to say, how to do that. I say you have to work on it, but how to do that, right? So that's the cycle. So the cycle starts with the experience. You had an experience. Let's say worst case scenario, you made a fool out of yourself. You ask yourself, what did I do? What was exactly that I did? Second step is reflect on it. What did I notice? How it made me feel? How it made other people feel? Did I see that other people are uncomfortable? Why did I feel uncomfortable? What can I do better next, right? And what can I do better next is your question, what can I learn from that? And once you know what you can learn from that, you have to go and do that again. You cannot stop. Oh, okay, now I know it. I figured it out. Okay, fine. I know that. No, you have to complete the cycle. You have to go and do that again differently this time, right? So you know that what you notice, you know what you learn, go actively seek out another situation, apply the knowledge that you gained from the previous situation, try to do it differently. And the cycle continues. Start a journal if you want. Make notes. You know, many people do that. Many managers do that. Trying to understand how the cycle works for you, because we're all different. The test shows that you all have different strengths and different weaknesses. So the cycle will look a little different from for all of you. So we have, I think, 5 more minutes. So I'm going to talk, just my last slide is the levels of CQ. So what are you working towards? So there's the cycle. So how long do you have to circle that thing like a hamster, you know, in a wheel? Like how long, you know? Well, probably all your life. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to kind of pretty it up for you. It's not Emily in Paris. But these are like 5 milestones that you can hit while working on your CQ. First is reactivity. So like the very basic, the very lowest level of your CQ is just ignorance. Thinking that all people have to behave the same. And by the same, I mean like me, right? So everybody has to behave like me, and I cannot see why it should be otherwise, right? So that's ignorance. You do not understand even that people differ, that culture has effect on people's behavior, right? Then second level is recognition. You start to understand that people are different. They behave differently because of their cultural backgrounds. But you struggle with that. You don't like that. As I said, you maybe even start avoiding those situations because they kind of make you feel uncomfortable, and you do not want to deal with that. And you say, okay, I'm going to stay with my own, and I'm not going to deal with those international students or professors, or I'm not going to apply to any international companies. You know, this is like very frustrating. If you get over it, and if you keep working with that cycle, if you're tenacious and resilient, you can go to level 3, which is accommodation. So you start noticing certain patterns, and you start feeling more and more confident in those complex, you know, ambiguous situations. So you still have difficulty to adapt. You still feel awkward doing those different things, you know, from your own culture. But you kind of, you know, you kind of do it. You understand that you have it's a burden, but you do it, right? Level 4, assimilation. You start feeling comfortable. You understand, okay, people are different. My culture is different from other key people's culture. I know how to behave. I know the tools. I'm going to be fine. But what if you really want that promotion? And if you really want to be global leaders, if you really want to be that manager of an international office in India, there's level 5. And that is proactivity. So you not are only comfortable in intercultural situations, but you can foresee what problems this intercultural setup may entail for your team, and you can facilitate that, and you can prevent those problems before happening as a manager, right? Prevent those conflicts, prevent those insecurities, prevent the people getting into fights over things that are unrelated to your business. Right, like history of Poland and Lithuania. Me and Bogna, we used to be the same country, and both have one version of that history, and Lithuanians have another version of that history. So we can have like a 3-hour fight about that if we want. But the question is, what do we want to accomplish? Right? Do we want to have that fight, or do we want to have a nice class, you know, for our students, right? So what do we work on that? How do we work on that? So, and this is the highest level of CQ, and this is ultimately what if we want an international career, and if we want to be global leaders, we have to be working towards. So that's a very kind of short crash course in cultural intelligence. If you have more questions, you're always welcome to ask me online. The best probably tool is LinkedIn. It's easier, but I know not everybody has LinkedIn, so Twitter or Instagram is fine too. So you can look me up by my name, right? So my really kind of goal in my classes is always that, it's absolutely normal to feel awkward. It's absolutely normal to feel not fitting in. And this is what you can do to make yourself feel better. So I think that's, and it's, as I said, it's not always just about reading the books and learning everything there is to learn about all the religions in India. It's also about learning about yourself. And I think it's really much more about learning about yourself than learning about others. Because how can you explain to others what's wrong if you cannot explain to yourself that, right? So it's really more about a colleague of mine, Julia Middleton from the UK, she said, like, the more I learn about other cultures, the more I discovered that my own culture is the culture that I have to learn most about, right? Because we take so many things for granted in our cultures. We do not think about it, but we have to think about it if we want to kind of explain it to other people too. So that's my kind of 2 cents here, and that's why I encourage people to be aware. It's really about awareness.